where the moon lights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your number one fan.
Hey up and welcome back to Rate Scary and your latest edition of horror news, which is going to be a bumper edition today because I have so much to go through. Let's get into it. Starting off first of all with some breaking news, and that is that The Last of Us has been confirmed for season 3 before season 2 has even released, which I think we kind of guessed because we knew that they weren't going to be able to pack all of the storyline from the second game into just one season. So while this is kind of expected news, it is also exciting news. And the creators Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann have previously said that they were even contemplating a 4th season. Now, if you're not familiar with The Last of Us, this takes place 20 years after modern civilization has been destroyed. And we have a survivor, Joel, who has been played by Pedro Pascal in the TV series, who is hired to smuggle a 14-year-old girl called Ellie, who is played by Bella Ramsey, out of an oppressive quarantine zone. Now, this starts as a small and simple job, but it soon becomes a brutal and heartbreaking journey as they must both traverse the US and depend on each other for survival. And season 2 picks up 5 years later with Joel and Ellie drawn into conflict with each other and a world that is even more dangerous than they had anticipated. I, for one, am very excited about this. I absolutely love the games. I loved season 1. I cannot wait for season 2. If we're going to talk about sequels, I've got a couple of other bits of news, starting off first of all with Happy Death Day 3. And we've had an update from the star of the first 2 films, Jessica Roth, who announced at a double feature screening of those first 2 films that the long-awaited 3rd installment is finally moving forward. Even director Christopher Landon himself, who has Drop coming out tomorrow, said himself it is moving forward, which is great news because it has been 6 years since we had the sequel, Happy Death Day to You. And I don't know about you, I love the first one. I loved Happy Death Day to You, and I cannot wait for there to be another one, which apparently is being titled Happy Death Day to Us. But Christopher Landon has said that the 3rd installment is going to be different to the first 2 films. Another franchise I am so in love with and so excited for. Hell House Lineage has been confirmed as getting a theatrical release this summer before then being released on the streaming platform Shudder later in October. Now, I've talked about this a couple of times in Horror News previous editions, but we've finally got a bit of a teaser which does confirm that our favourite clown is returning to the films. And don't forget, this is the first film in the Hell House LLC franchise that is not going to be in found footage format. But the film is going to expand on the story that has been set out in the previous 5 films, written and directed by Stephen Cognetti, and apparently this takes a deep dive into the murders that have been occurring all over the town of Abaddon for decades. I'm really hoping that this is a great film. I recently watched Stephen Cognetti's recent film, 825 Forest Road, which I wasn't overly impressed with, but I do love the Hell House films, and I think this will be a nice way to close out the franchise. Now let's talk about a remake instead of a sequel, and apparently the production company that is behind the recent smash hit, absolutely incredible TV series Netflix's Adolescence is turning 1984's Threads into a TV series. Threads, if you have not seen it, is a harrowing depiction of life in a nuclear war era Britain set in Sheffield, which is not too far from me. It's in Yorkshire, so it's very relatable. And this film is bleak and terrifying, and it definitely had an effect from what I understand when it was released at the time. Now, I, for one, I've seen Threads. I thought it was absolutely fantastic and it is exceptionally bleak. I think it would be really interesting to turn this into a TV series. I thought Adolescence was phenomenal. I kind of get vibes of Chernobyl that we could get through Threads, which again was another incredible TV series. And it's also been 40 years since Threads released, so I think it is due a bit of a refresh and bringing it to a newer audience. Now I need to give you a heads up on a film that is going to be releasing in theatres in May and also on digital, and that is a film called The Severed Son. And I have seen this already. I saw it at a film festival last year, and it is fantastic, especially if you are a fan of folk horror. The Severed Son is written and directed by Dean Puckett, who is a lovely person and very talented, and it is set in the heart of an isolated religious community. We have a pastor at the centre of this community who delivers sermons to a devoted congregation, but there are dark secrets in this community. And in the depths of the forest, the pastor's daughter, Magpie, takes desperate action, ending the life of her abusive husband. But little does she know that his murder will unleash a malevolent force, a mysterious beast with shimmering white eyes. And as the weeks pass, suspicion and paranoia grip the community, with fingers pointing at Magpie, and the pastor struggles to restore Magpie's dwindling faith, unable to bring her back into the truth. If you are a fan of Midsommar, if you are a fan of films like The Wicker Man, this is definitely one to stick on your watch list for this year. It is beautiful. It is quite dark. It is a little bit unusual, and I had an absolute blast watching it. I cannot recommend it enough. I am going to be rewatching this when this releases. Now for a couple of films that I will watch when they release, but I can't say I'm particularly excited about them. First of all, M3GAN 2.0. So we've had a trailer now for M3GAN 2.0. Yes, the bitch is back, even though I certainly didn't ask her to come back. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the first M3GAN film is okay. I think it's a great introduction to horror or gateway horror for a much, much younger audience. It just did not tick any boxes for me. And actually, I probably would have preferred a more adult version of M3GAN. And when I said that, I meant a grown-up, more brutal version of M3GAN, not as in her growing up, but that seems to be what is happening in M3GAN 2.0. She is stronger, she is faster, she is even taller at her request. And it seems like the film is taking the direction of more of a fantasy sci-fi route rather than it being horror, almost bordering on superhero. And I bloody love a superhero film. I love DC, I love Marvel, but even with superhero and horror combined, I am not excited for M3GAN 2.0. I will still go and see it. I'm intrigued to see what they do with the franchise, but yeah, this trailer has left a weird space in my brain. And another sequel to a film that I could not give two shits about is The Black Phone 2. I absolutely hated the first Black Phone, mainly because I saw so much potential in it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought the concept of the grabber was absolutely fantastic. I fucking love Ethan Hawke in absolutely everything that he does. I thought the guy who played Finney was great, but it was blatantly obvious that the Black Phone had been created to create a franchise, and here we are with the Black Phone 2. Now, I'd put all of my hatred aside in the hopes that with the Black Phone 2, we were going to get more of a backstory with the grabber, but after some teasers of footage at CinemaCon, apparently the Black Phone 2 is going to see the grabber stalking kids from beyond the grave. Now, I can't share this footage, it was completely locked down from CinemaCon, but apparently the teaser begins with a payphone at the side of the road in winter. Finney is walking and he sees a payphone and stops, and we then see 3 photos being placed on a table, and it cuts to Gwen inside a basement with someone very slowly and loudly walking down the stairs. Later, Finney answers the phone and the grabber appears on the outside. "Hello, Finney. Did you think our story was over? You of all people know that death is just a word." Finney is shown in the phone booth a lot, with scenes of other kids being attacked and nearly murdered, and it's pretty much like Freddy Krueger now. Oh, I just don't know how I feel about this. I know that I will go and sit in the cinema because, like I said, I felt like the Black Phone had so much potential and I do want to see what they do with it. I'm just disappointed that they're going down a supernatural route with him. Let me know what you think in the comments, though. Seems to be an episode full of sequel news this week, apologies, but this one I am genuinely excited for, and that is Talk to Me Too. So we have directors Danny and Michael Philippou who are getting ready to release their upcoming film Bring Her Back, which I am very, very excited for. It looks incredible. But the directors have recently given quite an interesting update recently regarding Talk to Me Too, because apparently it turns out there are not just one, but 2 scripts for the sequel, each one following a different storyline and a different character. And the brothers can't decide which one they want to tackle. Because of this, it doesn't seem that the film is going to be made anytime soon. We've obviously got Bring Her Back coming out this year, and they've said that once the script is complete, they will return to Talk to Me Too, and it's likely it's going to be 2027. Which I don't mind. As long as they pick the right script and do an excellent job of it, which they did with the first film, I am happy to wait another couple of years for the sequel to that one. Last bit of sequel news, I promise, but I think this is a really interesting one. Recently, Steven Soderbergh has been talking about some terrifying ideas for a follow-up to Contagion after speaking with pandemic experts. He said that he doesn't want to torture people. There are scenarios that you could come up with that you could categorize as irresponsible. You know, that I would go, that's a big idea, but I'm not sure I want to put that out there, frankly. I do think about that. And he has also said that he wants to do this, but the plot needs to be not predictable, which I can understand given that we have all gone through COVID not that many years ago. And I'm sure there were many people like myself that decided during the height of pandemic to rewatch Contagion and realized how scarily accurate it was. It is a fantastic film though, and I think learning from the COVID pandemic could make for a fantastic film. So fingers crossed we get something from Steven Soderbergh on this one. And then I do want to finish up with 2 pieces of TV news rather than film news. The first one being that Shudder is joining forces with Creepshow series director, incredible special effects person Greg Nicotero, who you will know from his work on The Walking Dead, as well as many, many other films, and he's a huge horror buff himself. And the streaming service has greenlit an immersive horror competition series called Guts and Glory, which is set to debut this year on both Shudder and AMC+. This is a 6-episode series, which is apparently completely different to traditional competition shows, thrusting players into an immersive horror experience full of unexpected challenges. Now, when I first read about this, I thought we were going to get another kind of face-off style TV show where people were going to be competing with special effects makeup, but this definitely excites me. I like the idea of a horror competition show. And if you know Greg's work, you know he's going to bring the practical effects to this and absolutely scare the shit out of people. And then the last bit of news before we wrap things up, and that is that we finally have kind of an update on the 13th series of American Horror Story. Now, production isn't yet underway, but there have been some questions about this final season. We don't have a theme yet. We don't have confirmation of a cast yet in totality, but there are a few things that we do know. So certain cast members are going to be involved. So Ryan Murphy has said that he is talking to Sarah Paulson and Evan Peters, which I think is great news. Like, surely they've got to be in the final season of American Horror Story. And other familiar faces like Taysa Farmiga, Lily Rabe, Dennis O'Hare, and Emma Roberts are also rumored to be in for the final farewell season. But one person that definitely isn't is Jessica Lange. When asked about returning for the season, she responded, "Oh Christ, no, I'm not doing it," and cited the fact that it's been over a decade since she was last on the show as a primary reason for not returning, which is very sad news. I love Jessica Lange, but I can totally understand her reasons for not doing it. So there you go. That is my horror roundup from this week. It's been a day late because there is so much that has been going on, but I hope you enjoyed it. And if there's anything that I have missed, please do let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you with this then. I'll see you soon.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
I'll be right back.
Game over. It's all for you.
Beware the moonlights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your #1 fan.